Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Samurai Goddess. The goddess next door takes on kung fu killers in this action-packed martial arts Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Samurai Goddess in paperback and e-readers today. I was reading some of the responses on social media to my blog about this Black Lightning television show that's coming on the CW, and I don't know what's more troubling, the way this Black Lightning show is being presented to comic fans, or the way that these black comic fans pretty much responded to the statement that this Black Lightning character won't be a part of the mainstream DC universe. I'm finding a disturbing pattern when it comes down to black comic fans and Negro nerds as it relates to black characters that are created by white people. Any black character that's created by white people, they will go out of their way to defend, and they will go out of their way to defend any action taken using said characters without holding that company accountable for the way that that character is represented. And what they don't understand is that the way this character is represented and the way you respond to it reflects on you. Because when I look at this Black Lightning character and the way he's being presented in the DC television universe, I see a slap in the face to black comic fans all across the country. And the reason why I see a slap in the face to black comic fans is because when it comes down to this Black Lightning character, the Berlanti Productions, they're saying that they have to pretty much put this character in a separate universe. And they say they have to do this for the first season because they want to see how the show does before they have him interact with the characters of the DC television universe, such as Arrow, The Flash, The Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl. And they say they have to do that because they want to see what the ratings are going to be like. However, I can go back to Supergirl Season 1, where they had Grant Gustin's Flash make an appearance on a Supergirl episode. And in that first season episode, you had the Flash, who was testing some equipment, run into Supergirl's Earth, and they teamed up to take on Silver Banshee and another female villain. I can't remember her right now. And that was considered one of the highest rated episodes of the Supergirl series when it was on CBS. In fact, it was the second highest rated episode of Supergirl on CBS. So their argument about Black Lightning not being able to interact with the heroes of the DC television universe, that really does not wash with me, because here we have a clear, definitive, proven concept that shows us when two superheroes interact with each other on a television show, that it leads to high ratings. So this whole Black Lightning needs to be on a separate Earth, that really stinks of some racism as I see it. When I look at this whole thing about putting Black Lightning on a separate Earth, I look at the way they're doing this, and I'm starting to see that what they really want to do on these Berlanti productions is what they want to do is they don't want to have this Black Lightning character interacting with the characters of the DC television universe, because the Black Lightning character pretty much represents a different narrative than the characters of the DC television universe. Now, when it comes down to your black characters of the DC television universe, the narrative there has been pretty much one of a minstrel show. You have John Diggle the butler, you have Joe West the butler, you have bumbling, stumbling Mr. Terrific, who sadly was based on a black comic book character who was considered to be the world's third smartest man and one of the most brilliant men on the planet, and also a man who was on the same level as Black Panther and Batman. We have Wally West, who is pretty much in the role of a child under Barry Allen. And then we have Fifth Wheel Firestorm, who's pretty much been emasculated. And then we have the guardian of the friend zone, James Olsen, who was once considered a hunk but is now put in the marginal role on the Supergirl show as basically a guy who goes in and does the dirty work, or is a punching bag because he is the guardian of the friend zone. And when you compare this to the Black Lightning that it looks like they wanted to present in the trailer, who is supposed to be a principal, a man of high standards and high morals, a father who's in his home raising his children, and you compare those two, you see a complete contrast to the narratives being presented on the DC television universe and the narrative presented in Black Lightning. And that's what I think that they're trying to cover for in saying that they don't want him interacting with the characters of the mainstream DC TV universe. Because when it comes down to black viewers, what they're going to do is they're going to start taking notes on how these characters are presented, and they're going to say to themselves, wait a minute, why is this Black Lightning so masculine and presented as a strong masculine male? And then you have these other males on this show, and they're pretty much either emasculated, effeminate, or they're just minstrels. And that's what they're afraid of people doing, looking at and comparing those narratives as it relates to those two shows and those two sets of characters. They're really afraid of that. And that's one of the reasons I believe they don't want people interacting on this DC television universe. They don't want Black Lightning interacting with those heroes for that core reason. And the other reason they don't want Black Lightning interacting with the characters in the DC television universe is that they don't want you to see a black man on the same level as Oliver Queen and Barry Allen and the white males in the DC television universe. They don't want you to see that because that makes some of these people in Warner Brothers uncomfortable about themselves, especially a lot of the white males. They become uncomfortable about the whole idea of a black man being on the same level as white men. They don't like that idea, so Black Lightning has to be on a separate Earth. They'll tell you that it's about the show having to see where it goes in the first season, but as a guy who has studied television for over 25 years, I can tell you this about television. If you don't do it in the first season, it's not going to get done. The first season is where you make your first impression on people. If your first season isn't strong, you're not going to get a second season. And sadly, many black comic fans and Negro nerds, they don't understand this, and they're hoping, wishing, and praying that this Black Lightning gets a second season on the CW before the first one has even aired. And that's really dysfunctional when you think about it, because you're hedging your bets on something that may not be a possibility. Because when it comes down to television, again, if you don't have that strong first season, people don't have an incentive to renew you for a second season. And one of the things that led to Supergirl getting that second season was that Barry Allen episode that they had in the first season. When that episode aired during the November sweeps, it was one of the highest rated episodes. And one of the reasons why it was one of the highest rated episodes is because people saw the Flash on there, and then that gave them an incentive to watch the show. And that was one of the things that pretty much, I believe, led to the renewal of season 2, because people looked at it and said, hey, if this character interacts with each other, it's a reason for me to watch. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of comic fans wanted to stay watching that show. And when I look at this whole Black Lightning, this is not a way to start the show off on a good foot. When you announce that the show won't be a part of the main television universe, what you're doing is you're making viewers not want to go and watch the show. They have no incentive to buy into the show, because when it comes down to these superhero television shows, seeing these two characters interact from the universe is a reason why a lot of comic fans want to watch these shows. And it's one of the reasons why the Marvel Cinematic Universe is so popular right now, because you're not just watching one superhero in a movie by himself, you're watching these different characters interact with each other and form a larger world. And with Black Lightning, the possibility and potential was there to pretty much springboard this show to becoming a monster hit if it was built up. Because when you look at Black Lightning's background, if you understand it, he has direct ties to the Superman universe. And pretty much, if you had built him up on Supergirl and brought Tyler Hoechlin in as Superman and showed that this metropolis was, a bigger place, it pretty much would have led to the show being spun off and then springing into larger ratings. Unfortunately, they decided to go in a different direction, and that's going to really slow down the momentum of the show as it relates to marketing and distribution. Not marketing and distribution, but to promoting the show. It's hard to sell a show when it's all by itself, but when you have other shows tied to it, it gives you a nice springboard, and it gives you a captive audience that wants to transition into it. So that has been pretty much lost, and these people at Warner Brothers and CW don't understand what they're doing. And then sometimes I believe that it's like passive-aggressive, passive in that they're giving you a Black Lightning show, and then aggressive in the way that they market it. And in the way that they are marketing it is by saying, oh, it's not a part of the DC television universe now, but you wait until a second season comes up. Not understanding clearly how television works, that TV shows have to do well in their first season in order to get a second. There is no guarantee. if your ratings aren't strong in the first season, you're not getting a second season. And when it comes down to television shows like your Black Lightning, it's a mid-season replacement. So if it's a mid-season replacement, there is no guarantee that this show is going to get a second season, and there's no real guarantee that it's going to be able to interact with those characters, going to interact with him, because what people don't know is that when you're on mid-season, that is one of the toughest periods to be in, because when you're on the fall schedule, you have a better chance of building an audience than you would in the mid-season, because when it comes down to mid-season shows, it's often a tougher challenge to build an audience, because the audience pretty much has settled into their habits. They pretty much are settled to the shows that they want to watch, and you really have to come out really strong in order to get that audience and maintain that audience. And this is something a lot of Black comic fans don't understand. They're going into it thinking, hoping, wishing, and praying that this show gets a second season, not understanding if you don't have the strong first one, it's just not going to happen. And I look at the passive-aggressive way where CW has pretty much marketed this show, and it fits consistently with the way they have pretty much presented these Black characters on these CW shows, in trying to present them in a negative light, or trying to put negative character traits on them, pretty much slapping Black comic fans in the face. Unfortunately, many Black comic fans are sadly spellbound about these DC Comics characters or these Marvel Comics characters, because they believe if this Black character is associated with white people, that any representation of them means attention for them, not understanding that there's positive attention and there's negative attention. And we saw positive attention when there were people like Dwayne McDuffie working at DC and Warner Brothers. When we came down to Dwayne McDuffie, he pretty much made sure that the Black characters were presented on the same equal platform as the white characters on shows like Static Shock, Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited. And when I look at the way these Black characters are presented on these Berlanti shows, and I compare it to the way the Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, and Dwayne McDuffie came together for Justice League Unlimited, and Static Shock, it clearly shows me why it's important for us to have Black men behind the scenes on these superhero television shows, because when there is a Black man behind the scenes on these shows, we get a completely different portrayal of Black men on television, and it's a more balanced portrayal, it's a more humanized portrayal, and it's one that shows us that the Black male heroes are the equals of the white male heroes, and there's no trying to separate them. It's just about heroes going out and doing good and fighting crime, and that's what leads to people enjoying an entertaining show. When it comes down to shows like Justice League Unlimited, and Static Shock, the reason why they are classics in the eyes of comic fans of all races is because there was no agenda to try to degrade any of the characters. It was about making sure that the characters were true to themselves, true to the source material, and presenting the best image of heroes possible. If you like this channel, you can pretty much donate to it by clicking to the link to the Patreon in the description box. And if you want to try out some of my SJS Direct titles, such as the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, or the Temptation of John Haynes, you may do so by clicking the link to the Amazon.com in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, E-Steam, Little Girl Lost. The devilish diva helps a lost little girl find her way home in this devilishly funny E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam, Little Girl Lost in paperback and e-readers today.